My name is Diane Gerald, and I'm committed to finding cures and treatments for heart disease because lives will not be lost. Lives will not be lost.
And my name's Danette Howard, and I'm committed to finding a cure for heart disease so that everyone can lead a long, thriving, and healthy life and continue to enjoy time with their moms and daughters and sisters and families. Yes. Well, finding a cure for heart disease is important to me for many reasons. But for starters, we know that heart disease is one of the diseases and causes responsible for a significant number of deaths in our nation. And we know that women are disproportionately among those numbers. And we also know that women of color are also victims of heart disease, much more so when related to individuals of other groups. So I care about a cure for heart disease because I want to make sure that members of my family, like my mom, like my daughter, like my sister, are able to lead thriving lives and not to become victims of heart disease. And I also want to make sure that that is true for others.
Well, I have a personal reason for wanting a cure for heart disease because I experienced a heart attack December 31st, 2018. I'm really pleased with how far things have gone with heart disease, but I know there could be so much more because had I not gotten to the hospital that I went to and been treated by the doctors that I was treated by, there might have been a different outcome. So, but again, I know that especially in the Black community, there is such a need for better care for people who suffer from heart disease. So I want everybody to be able to have the care that I had. I was home alone and was not feeling well, but the last thing from my mind was that I was having a heart attack or anything related to my heart. I thought that I had the flu. I had just come back from Christmas out here in Indiana with my daughter and family, but I just was not feeling well. I was feeling terrible. I had been in bed for about 2 or 3 days. And then finally, I had a fall because I was so weak. I was found by my daughter, my Danette sister, about, I don't know, 4 hours later. I couldn't get up. I thought I was just so weak that I couldn't get up. So anyway, she came, we got up. I reluctantly went to the hospital. And it was at the hospital that I was told that they couldn't slow down my heart rate. It was terribly high. They couldn't slow it down. They said I was in the throes of a heart attack, and they proceeded to try to treat it. And they had to do several, very intensive procedures, even in the emergency room, to get me settled. But they did.
In terms of the care that my mom received, I would say that it really started with the paramedics that
That's true.
were able to come into my mom's home and to take her to the hospital. And they were the first to identify the very rapid heart rate. And that it was something more than, we thought it was either the flu or pneumonia. And they identified that there was something going on with the heart rate. And my mom, I think, like most people, is pretty stubborn. She mentioned that she didn't want to go to the hospital even. I remember back to that period of time, and she was taking kind of over-the-counter flu medicine. And the day that she had the fall, I remember that was the day where we said, Mom, if you are not better by this day, you're going to have to go to the doctor. And I remember calling and not being able to get a hold of my mom. I went to check to see if she was feeling better. And the reason I couldn't get a hold of her is because she had had that fall. But in terms of the care, she had excellent care, beginning with the paramedics in the emergency room, the doctors who treated her in the emergency room. And then she was admitted to the cardiac intensive care unit at the hospital. And I would say that the cardiologist was a godsend. He was just wonderful in terms of conveying information and the wonderful bedside manner and comfort, care, and support with which he treated my mom and the nursing staff. But also, my sister and I were there to be able to advocate on behalf of my mom. And when you are in a very vulnerable state of being as sick as my mom was, we hope that everyone gets that wonderful care. But those who don't have family members and friends to kind of serve as their spokesperson or advocate are even, I think, even need that care even more so, because there isn't anyone there to ensure that they get it if the care isn't great. So I would say all the way through the experience of being in the hospital, first of all, she was at a hospital with a cardiac intensive care unit. I don't know that all hospitals have those. She was at a hospital where she just happened to be treated by the person who was the chair of the cardiac unit. And then following the hospital stay, which I think was close to a week,
Yes.
the ongoing treatment from her cardiologist was also fantastic. So that just goes to really speak to the importance of that long-term, that immediate care, the long-term care. And since that time, my mom has moved to Indiana and now again has a wonderful cardiologist. So, those things shouldn't be by chance. They shouldn't be happenstance. Everyone should have access to incredible cardiac care. When my sister arrived to assist my mom with her fall, she realized that she was going to need some assistance and actually called the paramedics to assist with getting my mom up and into a more comfortable position. Mm-hmm. And the first paramedics that came actually did that. They helped get my mom up into an upright position. But I don't even think that they took your vital signs.
They did not.
And they left after they assisted with the fall. So although they saw that she was in a state of needing help, they only attended to the immediate concern. If my mom had been by herself and if my sister had not been there, the paramedics would not have been called a second time. And it was the second paramedics team that was wonderful and amazing, that took all the vital signs, that saw that she was experiencing a highly irregular heart rate, and who got her to the best hospital where she continued to receive amazing care. But the first part of that story is that she interacted with a medical team that didn't see the signs and that didn't even take vital signs in order to see if there was something else happening. The research is very clear that across the board, medical professions interact with patients of color, particularly African American patients, differently than they do white patients. Our complaints about pain are received differently. The severity of the conditions that we are often in to complain about are not treated as seriously. There have been many cases of African Americans who have gone into the emergency room or into the doctor's office because they are experiencing certain symptoms, and those symptoms have been dismissed, and then there have been tragic outcomes as a result of the lack of treatment. And so this is a very serious issue, and part of why I've decided to be a part of the executive leadership team of the Indianapolis American Heart Association is to bring attention to these inequities. Everyone should have, again, access to the best treatment. But along with that access, we need to have our complaints and our concerns about our own health and well-being taken very seriously. I come from a family of givers. Whatever we had, we were always willing to share. My parents instilled in me the importance of personal responsibility. To whom much is given, much is required. So I think part of my DNA is thinking about how to make a difference, how to use whatever I have, my talent, time, or treasure on behalf of others. So my husband and we have two small children, we try to be intentional about our giving, and we've developed a personal philanthropy plan for us that begins with giving to our local church. It then extends to giving to causes that matter quite a bit to us. So we give back to our colleges and universities. I think that higher education is an incredible pathway into the middle class. It gives people a means to lift themselves up out of poverty. That's also a part of our family's personal story. And so when I had the opportunity to do so, my husband and I started the Danette and William Howard Endowed Scholarship at my alma mater, Howard University, because I got to go to Howard University because I received a scholarship. And so we thought it was really important that we give back when we were in a position to do so. Our giving then extends from there to other causes that we care about. So William, my husband, is on the board of the Special Olympics of Indiana. So that is a part of our giving plan. I give to organizations like the American Heart Association because that's very important as well. And so instead of just kind of giving here or there, we try to have a strategy around how our giving so that our dollars will make a difference.
I was trying to think this morning when I started that. I don't know. It feels like it's been about 10 years or so. So every day in December, from December 1st to December 31st, I wear red, and usually a different red. And I've been trying to think about why I started doing that. I'm not really sure why I started, although I think it had something. I think it had something to do with really intentionally showcasing what the reason for the season was, and I thought that red would do that in a really great way. And then I've added other reasons to it. But the bottom line is I love to wear red from December 1st to December 31st. And I just think I know that for my girls, it's become a tradition for them, for me to wear red. They're always buying me red tops or red sweaters or red something or other so that I can add to my wardrobe. So I love it.
Just increasing awareness is so important. And part of my mom's story is that she did not exhibit the classic symptoms, but we all know our bodies and when something isn't feeling right. And I think the importance is to not ignore those signs or ignore those symptoms because we may think that it is something minimal and it could actually be heart disease and the way that heart disease is manifesting itself in our bodies. So the ongoing awareness and the ability to share your story, it's so important because you never know if someone can be kind of touched or influenced or informed by our story, which is a different kind of story than I think you typically hear.
On a regular visit to my cardiologist, they detected something that he was not pleased with, and so I had to undergo a whole day pretty much of testing, stress tests and echocardiogram and a couple of others, and the testing came back pretty good. They just had to do a medication change, and I go back in a short while and they'll retest and see if that was effective, and if not, they'll do something else.
But I love that it was a proactive kind of procedure, right? So even though they weren't sure if it was something or if it wasn't something, it's always better to make sure
Yes.
by going through the process and the procedure. And again, I just think that speaks to the quality of care that folks receive. That was an example of not being dismissive of something that showed up, and of not saying, oh, we can just wait and see how this plays out.
Right.
But the cardiologist was on top of it.
Yes.
It's always better to get that good news of confirmation. Actually, it's not anything major. We're just going to do a medication shift, than to not do the procedure and have it turn out to be something major. So I would just say to all the children out there, don't be afraid to override your parents and make sure they go and get that good medical care. Sometimes they're resistant and obstinate, but in the end, it's certainly worth it.
Is that your message?
That's my final answer, yes.